Hi, everyone. My name is Tremaine Emory. One part of No Vacancy In. Also, I have a brand I run called Denim Tears. I guess I could be considered artist, designer, merchant. And I'm here, happy to be here with the All Star community to talk about how you can give your voice to art. And happy to be here for this, giving art your voice. So before we get into any questions or talks with anyone else, I'm just going to get into a very important question that this platform's asked me, which is how do you see oneself in the world, in the community in which you exist, and how to leverage art as a means to make your voice heard. So there's no, firstly, there's no right or wrong to this question. It's more about a internal path that you find for yourself, and then like a filter on everything that comes through to you. So whether it's your parents, school, society, media, more than controlling what you see, because you can't always control that, you can control the filter and question everything. And that's the best way. The first part of that question is to how to see oneself in a community is to question everything, even question the perceived good things, question the perceived bad things, filter it, and then find out for yourself what matters to you, what matters you think should matter to your community, and what matters to everyone. And that's the key, is to question everything. And so that's where art starts, is questioning things. So before you get into, if you're a painter, if you're I don't know, stuffing sharks with formaldehyde like Damien Hirst, just whatever you're doing, the first thing you got to do is start questioning the human condition, questioning society, questioning politics, questioning gender, questioning race, questioning religion, questioning capitalism, questioning socialism. Question everything, and through all those questions, you start to find some answers that make sense to you and your tribe of people in the world and community you live in. And then from there, you can develop your voice as far as an artist, and also just as a human being. To me, that's the path that's worked for me. And I was set on that path by my parents. My mom and dad told me to question everything, and to even question them, question what they tell me, and figure out what's good for myself, and to see everything as art. So now into the second part of the question is, how do you leverage art as a means to make your voice heard? Firstly, you don't have to do that. In a lot of ways, art is something we use to define the human condition, to express and question our existence. We've done it since we were cavemen. But if you don't use your art as a voice, a way to be heard, and the way to talk about society and what's going on, there's consequences to that. And not consequences like you get in trouble or anything like that, but consequences with yourself when maybe you look back on your legacy as an artist, as your career, and things happen in the world or in your community, things that affect you or didn't affect you, and maybe you could have spoke on it, you could have expressed things. And to be more specific, just to talk about myself, like someone who makes art, who makes things, who helps other artists make things. How could I have an opinion about the ills of society, but then none of the sneakers or T-shirts or pieces of art or talks or anything that I'm putting out into the world isn't about anything, isn't commenting on what's going on. And again, it's fine to do that, but then there's consequences to that, and you really gotta see for yourself what you can live with regret free. And me personally, I wouldn't be able to live regret free if I never spoke on any of these things, and not just about stuff that's happened in my community. There's things that there are communities that I'm not necessarily part of that I feel at times I should address with my voice. And the reason art's a great thing to do it is because, to me, art isn't the highest thing, but the visual medium is just super palatable to a lot of people, depending how you do it. If you do it in a pop sense, I'm not talking about like abstraction and stuff like that. So it's just, you can write an essay about voting and voter suppression, or you can make like a really fire t-shirt. And for a large part of the community, maybe the t-shirt will reach the kids more than the essay. Really, I think you need both. I think you need the art. And that's why, for me, art is a way to get the bigger ideas heard. So, I make a sneaker that has some type of meaning. Hopefully I get someone that, maybe 1 out of 100 kids or adults, whoever, to pick up a book or to read an article and really, or vote or care about something that maybe they weren't thinking about. So to me, that's the best way to leverage art, is to use it as a bridge to further understanding and really further questioning. That's my whole thing. When I make stuff, and I think a really good artist, when they make stuff, you're not telling someone what to think. You're imploring them to question and make a choice for themselves. So to me, that's the best use of art, the best leverage. And thank you guys. Looking forward to the questions and talking to you.
Tremaine, I loved a lot of what you were saying there, especially around using art as that bridge of expression and questions. I think one thing that it brought up for me, and you kind of alluded to it when you talked about your parents, but like, how did you initially start to build that confidence to express your voice through your art?
People really consider privilege relegated to how much money you grew up with, or what neighborhood you grew up with, or what schools you could go to, and color your skin. But there's a different kind of privilege too. And I grew up with the privilege of having a really solid foundation, and to not just my mom and dad, my grandparents, uncles, aunts, a group of people from Harlem, small town Harlem, Georgia, that have a real strong sense of self. So I would say that would be the first thing where it started. That sense of self I saw in my family, and then that they instilled in me. And then just, my mom and dad, like I remember my dad, it's interesting, there's this book that just came out about this designer that died in the 80s. So he never really got to blow up, black guy from Harlem, Willie Smith. He had this brand called Willie Wear. My whole childhood, when I'd be buying clothes and, begging my mom and dad to get me this polo, blah, blah, blah. And the stuff was expensive. So, and then my dad be like, Tremaine, you want all this expensive clothing? When you need to put your name on your jeans. You need to do it like Willie Wear. You said Willie Wear, he's a black man like you. He put his name on his jeans. And his stuff was big in the streets, but he unfortunately he died young. And I never forgot that. And it's like, it sounds kind of corny, but I now have stuff that in some semblance has my name on it. I don't know if I would have had the confidence if I didn't have my dad telling me. My dad basically was saying, you're the validation, not the brand. And then he gave me an example of someone who validated itself. So I think that's where, it came from. And then just like, also just like my parents, like just our weekends in New York, like going to museums and going to see different stuff from a young age. And
that early exposure. I said that early exposure. Right? That early exposure to art and some of these different cultural aspects.
Yeah. Early exposure but then my parents never held it as something that I couldn't do or was this far off thing. And it wasn't like my parents were like brainwashed me, like you can do whatever you want. I don't believe people could do whatever they want. I believe people can do whatever they really love and they're really willing to work hard for. And if you get a bit lucky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's those three things, like really loving something, working really hard, and then also you got to get lucky, which is out of your control. So I think those were those things were the foundations, you know, and so I never looked at art as a pretentious thing. You know, my dad used to tell me, you know, there's an art to everything, art to the way you brush your teeth, this, that, and the third. So I was easy for me to be like, when I felt it was time to start making stuff. And I've been making stuff for a while in some sort of fashion, even if it was just writing ideas down.
Yeah.
You know, ideas that never came to fruition, you know. I never felt like, oh, well, what's my accreditation? Your accreditation is your observance of life, and then you putting that into the world. Then you've lived life, you felt pain. If you felt pain and felt joy, you're accredited to be an artist if you so choose to be. And that's what I learned from my family, and stuff. And then it got reaffirmed when I started reading and hanging around on my own journey.
Yeah. No, I think that's incredible to have that system, and then as you're saying, to pull together your own system, you know, outside of your family circle is really great. I think next we want to take some questions from the community now. We'll actually have Isaac turn on his camera, but Isaac, coming in from London, introduce yourself and share a little bit of your thoughts with Tremaine.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name's Isaac Andrews. I'm an artist.
Isaac, what's up, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Last time I saw Isaac was at my pop-up in London. He came by and showed me some of his amazing artwork. Anyway, I'll shut up and let you talk.
Okay, I've got a question. So I am quite obviously a white artist, but the work I make is very inspired by Black diaspora art, from medium to meaning. And I started making art outside of school under the wing of a Ghanaian collage artist called Larry Amponza. And also some of my favorite artists who most inspire my work are Black. I have Arthur Jaffa, Najida, Akinyele Crosby, I've got Romer Bid, and all that. Those artists inspire me. And they make what is often labeled as Black art. And then, so my work is and always has been work relating to the current sort of political climate in the world. It's social commentary work. So what's my role as a white artist conveying allyship through my work when making art about topics such as the BLM movement? How do I make the art that I want to make about the subjects that I want to cover without falling into the sort of white savior complex-esque or tokenistic work? You look at the amazing Renee Matique from BBC London, which is an art collective here in London, and she wrote an essay called Black Pain is Not for Profit, and that was in response to Luke Willis's Turner Prize nomination. So how do I cover these topics that I want to cover as a white artist? What's my role in the conversation, if there is a role for me in that conversation?
This is one of the best questions I've ever been asked. I really personally appreciate you, man. You're amazing. Amazing question. I would say, Isaac, you already, through whether it's your parents or you're reading on your own or a mix of things, I mean, it has to be a mix of things. You must have great parents or some type of great mentors. You're on the right road, man. I mean, be true to yourself, and that's what it sounds like to me. And if you're inspired by these things and you're openly saying what you're inspired by, and you care about what, because we're all human, right? But you know, there is the social construct of race. You know, scientifically, we are all the same, but there's a social construct of race that's created by globalization, capitalism, and the white male patriarchal system systematic, institutionalized racism and patriarchy. But if you're totally aware of all these systems, I'd rather you make the art and bring more awareness than you not make the art and just sit in a pub and talk about the plight of Black people. But I don't want to take a picture or paint a painting or write an essay because, because I don't want to offend. It's like just you acknowledging your sources, you acknowledging your compassion, your humanity. People need to see people of all colors do that. Just like people need to see men making art and making films and writing books about what women go through. You know what I mean? So I think that's a beautiful thing. As far as the prophet, that is an interesting. I would love to read that essay. There has been so much profit made off of Black art, people of color art, women art, LGBT, everything, by those that don't suffer under the tyranny that they live under, but people are making money off of the pain that they suffer under that tyranny. But I feel if you find a way where you got to live, man, you got to eat, you got to pay for your art materials and stuff. But I think if you make it a part of your life, educating and raising and helping raise money for people who don't have the privilege that you were born with because you're a white man, you can make a living and also offer painting and also donate from it. Does that mean you have to donate off every painting you sell? Maybe. And that's okay too. Or maybe I'm more into donations are cool, but I think if you make it a part of your life to systemically help fight the systemic problem that, people of color go through and women go through, and you acknowledge your privilege as a man in general and as a white man, and then you make it a part of your life, and when you have kids and when you're in a pub and you're at a family, you're at Christmas dinner, and then maybe you're like your uncle makes some offhand comment about Pakistani people, and instead of saying, "Hey, he's my uncle, I'm not going to say anything," and you're like, "No, you can't think like that. And I can't sit at this table if you're speaking that way." Then I'm more care about how you're living your life day to day, knowing your privilege, than what you're doing with the money you're making from this art. That's your decision, end of the day, and you got to live with the consequences of donating part of it, all of it, some of it. But it's about how are you going to engage your community and the institutions that you benefit from. How are you going to force them to change so that there's less pain to profit off? Because that's the problem. There's the pain. The pain exists. How do we lessen the pain? I don't know if a dollar lessens the pain. I think it's like changing the system. So if you make that a part of your life, that's, I think, the best type of charity you could do. So I think if you're willing to make that a part of your life, then yeah, paint, be inspired, paint, shoot what you want to shoot, make a living off it, donate what you feel necessary, and if you but think about, when you're in a position to hire someone, think about, am I being shown nepotism? It's just the white, just if you're thinking about all this stuff and all your actions, that's the real win for me, not necessarily where you put your money from your painting. I hope you sell loads of painting and make loads of money. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Isaac, thank you so much for your question.
Oh no, thank you.
Absolutely. Tremaine, now we're going to segue into another question from an All Stars community member, Emma, who's an artist in Tel Aviv. And the question asked is, as an artist, how do you translate your thoughts on issues regarding everyday life into pieces of art?
How do you do what?
How do you translate your thoughts on issues regarding everyday life? So, everything that we're probably experiencing right now, how do you take that filter and put it into your art?
Gotcha. I mean, what it's kind of like? It's it's like basketball. It's like basketball. So like you drive into the hoop
Mm-hmm.
and a defender comes up, you don't think that I'm gonna throw it behind my back.
Right.
Be like behind my back, but then pull it back, hesitate, fake it, and then dish it off to the dude that rolls off a pick that was set for him.
Yeah.
You don't think that. So what I'm saying is the reason athletes are able to do that, do these reactions to adversity that come up on the court, is through practice. So if you're constantly practicing your art and paying attention to what's going on in the world, it's just going to come to you naturally. You know, and you know, you will, whatever you do, whatever permeates from you, it's going to come from, you know, the time you put into paying attention in the world. And also, you know, so if you're working on 10,000 hours of ceramics and you're reading the Sunday Times every week, there's going to be a moment where like the ceramics are gonna say something possibly about, if you care, if you're interested, you know, say something about what's going on, you know. So I think it's a natural thing. You can see when it's forced, because even there's things that, even though they have the most positive intention, they come off a bit try hard, or not try hard. They just don't feel, not even, because if something's positive, it's great, but it doesn't feel organic. It doesn't feel
organic.
Yeah. You know?
I like when you put it that way, because I think you're talking a lot about the preparation, and the basketball analogy is perfect, because you're right. You're not, no player is thinking about all of those things they're going to do in that moment. It's just what they've been preparing for leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, and it's not about me at all, but, you know, I put out a t-shirt, raised some money for Know Your Rights Camp, but you know, it had a James Baldwin quote on the back about rioting. It was like, I had read that quote before. You know what I mean? And then the new riots happened and protests happened. And so then I was able to go and pull that to express solidarity with the people that were looting out of anger. And, you know, all the stuff people were doing and protesting and getting into it because of, you know, what happened to Ahmaud and Breonna and, you know, George and everyone else. So I guess that's a bit of an example. Like, it's something I probably read years ago, and then this happened, and then so that was like mine behind the back pass. Yeah. You know?
I love that. I love that. So our last question is actually going to come in from John in Indonesia. And John asked, and it's kind of in a tone to where you've been leading, but it's, what would you like to see from the younger generation of artists, right? When you think about, you know, some of the question that came from Isaac and some of the question that came from Emma, like, as they're starting to shape their voices, what would you like to see from them?
I'd like to see it become more about communities. So like, let's say like a colony of ants, no superstar ant. It's all the ants working for the common good. And so maybe less like praising of like even people like me, like, you know, like I'm this one island that's this creative dynamo that can do all this stuff, when really it's not true. I have a business partner. There's an executive assistant. I have a guy I work with, James, on all my graphic design. We do it together. There's all the stuff I've done with A-Side, all the stuff I've done with Callie DeWitt, stuff I've done with I can just keep naming people. Yeah. Very few things I do that is all me. So it'd be dope if like people started, maybe like, so the next sneaker deal or someone gets, it's like like 7 people, a group gets the deal. Like, you know, I don't know, let's say like there was this one artist conglomerate called, I think, the Bernadette Corporation, you know, this Bauhaus and stuff like that, where like they get to like, a group of people become the head of Prada or something like that.
Instead of just the hero narrative.
Yeah, the hero, because that narrative is derived from celebrity culture.
Mm.
And, you know, even with like, you know, perfect examples like Last Dance. Everyone kept calling the Michael Jordan documentary. It wasn't the Michael Jordan documentary. It was the Chicago Bulls documentary.
Right.
Because it was just, you know what I mean? Like, he could not have done it without Scotty, without Phil, without Kerr, BJ Armstrong. We could keep naming names.
Right.
Down to the dude that was massaging his muscles after the game.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have that guy. He's not able to play tomorrow.
Right.
So it's great to see from young artists, to see like that group mentality, and it's becoming less about the star and more about a group of people making stuff. I think that'd be the dopest. That'd be one of the dopest things, because, you know, I think the intent of like people trying to make things that matter to the world, and just that's there and it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we still have this solitary lone wolf figure thing, and I don't think that helps, you know. And I think it's about the team, the group. So I'd love to see that from more groups of young artists, young people, and it's not just about one person, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang forever. Oh, man. Tremaine, thank you so much for speaking with us today about giving art your voice. And also thank you to the All-Stars that came and shared your voice with us today. Amazing conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course.